One of my favorite bands, U2, has a haunting lyric in one of their songs called "If God Will Send His Angels." They say, "God's got his phone off the hook, and would he even pick up if he could?" This week's key question is a common concern from anyone attempting to connect with their Creator. Does God care about me? Is God paying attention to anything going on with me? We long for personal connection with God, but we often feel distant and removed from this desired intimacy, as if God's phone is indeed off the hook. Today's key idea says, I believe that God is involved in and cares about my daily life. As Christians, we affirm that there is a personal connection that can be achieved between ourselves and God. Our understanding of the Holy Spirit includes the idea that God comes in and dwells within us, that the Spirit lives in us, that the Spirit helps guide and direct our path. Now, this is an encouraging and hopeful concept, but sometimes in this attempt to convey our personal connection with God, I fear we lose the importance of our communal connection with God. I'll give you another example from a song. I knew it from an early 70s Christian rock band, but I think several country artists have done it as well. And the song says, "Me and Jesus got our own thing going. Me and Jesus got it all worked out. Me and Jesus got our own thing going. We don't need anybody to tell us what it's all about." Now, the idea here is that because we have a personal connection with God, that His Spirit dwells within us, then we don't need anybody else. We don't need a pastor. We don't need a church telling us what to do. We don't need any kind of community of faith. We've got Jesus, and Jesus is quite enough. Thank you very much. I'm sure at least someone in your life has said no to church at one point or another, opting instead to hang out with God in their fishing boat or on the golf course on a Sunday morning. If you don't need anything but Jesus, then you and Jesus can have your own church anywhere you want, anytime you want. Now, while this may have some truth to it, it seems to neglect a critical piece of the puzzle. Much of what I consider God's personal connection with us to be comes through fellowship, worship, and community connections with other believers. So, believing in a personal God is not an excuse to abandon the valuable role the church plays in our faith development. But believing in a personal God is embracing just how very personal God has chosen to be with us. Let me show you an example. This is Isaac. He is 1 month old. He was actually named for the Isaac you will read about in week 2 of Believe. I filmed a lot of these Believe videos over the summer before he came along, but this is not one of them. Isaac's life consists of eating, sleeping, filling up his diaper. He knows how to flail his limbs around in a manner that suggests that they have a mind of their own. He will stare at you, kind of. He will stare near you. He will stare through you, I guess. He's working on focusing on the faces of those who hold him. Isaac is a very sweet boy. But he is a very vulnerable, frail, dependent individual. He would not last long in this world without the help of others. God spent a lot of time in the Bible trying to interact with His people from the outside. But then His plan shifted gears dramatically when He came to earth as a tiny baby, much like this one. God risked being vulnerable, frail, and dependent upon His own creation to keep Him alive. Suddenly, things got very personal. In Jesus, God could be among us as one of us. He could experience life in all its highs and lows, encouraging us to follow His example in our words and in our actions. He could teach us, show us, walk with us through the learning process. And if that wasn't personal enough, He showed us what true sacrifice is by giving His life as a ransom for ours. Now that's a personal God. As you go through the readings for Believe this week, and you go through the biblical examples that come up that they've selected to reinforce this concept of God's interaction and involvement in your life, pray that you will embrace this truth and renew your connection with Him both individually and in the life of the church. Now, if you'll excuse me, I might have a diaper to change.